All right, so you guys just tell me when we're on, and then we'll be ready to go.
Okay.
We can go?
We've got 30 seconds.
We welcome you into yet another edition of the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show here at Quaker Steak and Lube. Of course, this is not the Dear Goon. This is the beloved Chris Bucanani, Booch, as we call him, filling in for the Dear Goon today.
Absolutely.
And
I'm like the Charlie Batch of this.
Yes, indeed.
To relate to your world.
I like it. I guess we'll touch on the snooze fest that was the NFL playoff weekend. Holy cow. One boring game after another.
Can I just mention, I do have a little bit of a bone to pick with you.
Yeah.
You might even know where I'm going with this.
Pick away.
I don't know if I'm the first one to bring this up to you.
What?
But I got to give you a ton of credit.
Oh,
you are an excellent salesman. And Goon said the same thing, because you had the both of us genuinely worked up, nervous, on pins and needles going into Friday night. We're thinking, man, he was like listening to Jopa talk about Temple. We got to be careful. Temple got a lot of athletes. All that talk about Michigan, I was like, gosh. Oh my God, this is their heavyweights, number 3. I mean, this is a number 3 team in the nation.
Listen, Michigan's stance is terrific. Their stance was terrific. That was, and nobody's going to get the reference there, but there was, I forget if it was, I feel like it was one of the MAC teams that was coming in, and Paterno was because, again, he was all about praising the opponent no matter what, but he was so reaching in terms of, listen, what am I going to say good about this team that's coming in? And what he said, and he was genuinely, he's like, listen, when you watch this team, and I wish I could remember the team because I'm sure it would make it even better, but he's like, when you watch this team, they break the huddle crisply, every time, and they line up every time. It's like, well, what football team doesn't line up generally as the 70? I mean, that's it. But you're listening to him, he's like, wait, did he just say that they huddle up and they break the huddle? He's like, they are really crisp with the way they break the huddle. I wish I could go back, but so
you had us all worked up for that Michigan match, Ironhead, and then look, if you were a casual Penn State wrestling fan who knows nothing other than Penn State's really good and damn near beats everybody, you would have gone into that match thinking Michigan, these guys are pushovers, and you would have gotten exactly what you were expecting. Meanwhile, Goon and I, we were stomaching knots all day getting ready for that.
As were a lot of fans, and it was funny because I room with the trainer, and we were just kind of talking going in, and both had some concerns. Now, mind you, we didn't know that Mičić wasn't wrestling until, I caught wind of the rumor that morning. I don't know if it had been out there all week. I was not aware. It was funny. We just had one of our beloved listeners here informing me about A.J. Ferrari's car crash last night, the returning national champion for Oklahoma State, which, again, I tend to it sounds like he is, but it also sounds like there could be some pretty significant charges coming his way if what is being reported is accurate. But it sounds like physically he came out of it mercifully okay.
Because in that case,
the circumstances,
a low-hanging fruit joke to be made with someone whose last name is Ferrari getting in a car crash.
Yes, indeed. So again, we'll see what happens moving forward, but. So, the Mičić bout truthfully concerned me with Nick Lee, just style matchup, experience, and all of that. Okay. And watching the way Lee wrestled this weekend, I don't think that concern was justified either, because I don't think it would have mattered. I think it was Thomas Gilman that put out the tweet Friday night. It wouldn't have mattered if Micic wrestled or not. Whoever was wrestling Nick Lee tonight was going to get tech fauled, and I'm not sure he's altogether wrong about that. I don't think Micic, just in case there's big Micic fans out there, I don't actually think Nick Lee would have tech fauled Stevan Micic, but I do think he would have prevailed against just about anybody the way he wrestled on Friday night. But there's a few things. So the duel obviously went Penn State's way in a big way. I will say when you go back and look at the individual bouts, there were a lot of bouts that could fairly easily have gone another way.
Yeah, sure.
And so, it could have ended up being, could have, would have, should have ended up being a much closer duel. I do think Michigan is still a very dangerous tournament team. I also now think, and we'll find out Friday night, because the Iowa meet is I think, has the potential to be very similar to the Michigan meet, both in terms of competitiveness in the individual bouts and also in the separation between the teams in the final score. And listen, again, a couple of those bouts go the other way, and it's a different meet. You don't get the injury at 149. I mean, I think Bo Bartlett was going to win that bout regardless, but, you take 3 points off the board there. Momentum swings one way or another at different points of that duel, and again, I think it could play out differently. And I think you saw like Carter Starachi was pushed to the brink by Logan Massa. Aaron Brooks was pushed. Max Dean was pushed, and then obviously lost to Cam Caffey on Sunday. So. But I do think Penn State just wrestled extremely well and was dialed in, and I think they'll be dialed in for sure here on Friday night. And I like the matchups going in, having seen now Penn State's performance against Michigan and watching the way the Iowa team is performing. But this meet is still a concern for me on Friday night, just because of the Carver Hawkeye magic, and obviously those guys are going to be fired up too. Going in, I'm expecting Penn State to win at 125, but I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, Ayala's getting better and is a very good prospect and has a great future. How soon that future will be realized, or that potential will be realized, is I think the only question right now.
Well, here's
in Iowa, and I think you start going through that lineup, and there's a lot of weights like that. It's like I think Penn State can or will win this, but wouldn't be a huge upset the other way. On paper, truthfully, I think you have Penn State significantly favored in 2 weight classes, Iowa in 1, and there are 7 basic toss-ups. I mean, I think in more of those Penn State is favored, but again, it's a slight margin that you would favor them. I think 197 now is a true toss-up after Max Dean's loss, and the way Jake Warner's been wrestling. Jacob Warner's been phenomenal here these last couple of weeks for Iowa. So I think that weight is interesting. Kirkfleet's big win over Paris now I think makes that matchup with Cassiope really intriguing. And again, I think going in, if you're a Penn State fan, you feel very good about that matchup. But I think if you're an Iowa fan, there's certainly reason for optimism to think you can and maybe even will win that bout. And there's a lot of weight classes like that. Penn State, I think, goes in thinking it can win 149. I'm sure Iowa goes in thinking that's a bout that we absolutely have to have and will have with the way Max Murin's been wrestling it as well. So to me, this dual meet is just it's just going to be fun for fans of both Penn State and Iowa, but also just college wrestling fans to just sit back and say, all right, let's see what these teams do in an environment like this. It'll obviously be a sold-out crowd and a wild crowd in Iowa City here on Friday night.
Do you think the dynamic of who has more to lose in that match has flipped? now because of the injuries to Iowa and the expectations for Penn State?
I do, and I think
which is not great when you're going to their place.
No, and I think if you got truth serum in Cal, he'd just soon that people not be ranking Penn State number one.
Right,
He'd much rather that Iowa still be number one and presumed the favorite to win the title. But it's just not the reality with Spencer Lee out of that lineup and with the way these teams match up, both in the dual meet and even I think more so now in the tournament. We were talking, and again, I'm not sitting here predicting anything, but there are 7 weight classes now where I don't think it is a huge leap to say Penn State could get in the finals. Again, I am not predicting.
Right.
Let me be clear. I am not predicting that Penn State will have 7 finalists. By the way, Iowa twice in its program history has had 6 finalists. No team has ever had more than 6, and only Iowa has had 6.
Let's get it. Let's get it.
And obviously no team has had more than 5 national champions in a given season. Penn State once, Iowa a couple times, and Oklahoma State.
After this football season, they richly deserve to have this taken away from the Ironheads. So I'm still still pretty salty.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you as far as the football component goes. I will say I do love, don't always love the results, but I do love wrestling in Iowa City. The fans there, I mean, it can be intimidating for the officials, and I do think they get some calls, but that's what a home environment should do for you.
Yeah.
The atmosphere, every time we've been at Carver Hawkeye, and this is, I mean, long before Cale was there, when we went out with Rich Lorenzo, when Troy and John were coaching the teams, you feel like you were at a big-time sporting event. Every time we've been out there, and again, there's been some years where it's been a lot of years where Penn State, even when Iowa was in its heyday in the 80s under Gable, Penn State still had Penn State was the first team ever to first opponent ever to win in Carver Hawkeye, and for years was one of the very few teams that had multiple wins over those Hawkeye teams in that arena. And but it just always feels, I mean, those fans there are just rabid, and
no doubt.
And it's a team that always, you're going to get a great effort, if nothing else from Iowa. There's never any doubt about that. And so I always look forward to it, and the staff there with Iowa is, at least for wrestling, is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, going back over the years with Tracy Wagner and now Chris Brewer, just truly all first class individuals, and I always like dealing with Iowa throughout. Brand's always is good for quotes. He's a lot of fun in that regard. And again, they're all in it because they want to compete with the very best. And I do think this stool, again, going in, I think there's plenty of reason for optimism if you're a Penn State fan. But I don't think it's going to take much when you're in Carver Hawkeye for things to not go the way you're envisioning. If you're a Penn State fan. But yeah, going back to the Michigan meet, I will freely admit that was much more of a team score beatdown. Again, I think if you go through the individual bouts, I don't know that it was quite the beatdown that final score would have you believe it was. But, man, to go into Ann Arbor with that Michigan team this year, and even with Michich out and even with the injury at 49, to win 8 of the 10 bouts is still pretty heady stuff. And I'm not sure there's anybody else that is going to win more than six bouts, and I'm not sure anybody's going to win more than 5 bouts against that Michigan team in a dual meet, Iowa and Oklahoma State and everybody else included. So, this Penn State team right now, when when they have all 10 starters going, I do think this has a chance to be a truly great team. And again, I think there are 7 weight classes where it's not unrealistic. And you might even say 8. 125 is just such a loaded weight class, and with Aruja, and Hildebrandt was only a riding time point away from at least sending the top ranked kid in the country,
right.
And returning, or not returning, but former national champion to sudden victory. But 125, I think, is just a really tough weight class to break through at. I'm not saying Hildebrandt can't. But outside of and for that matter, again, if Bo Bartlett gets hot, I wouldn't say it's impossible for him, but I think 125, 149, 157 right now are the only weights where it would be a tall order for sure for Penn State to have a finalist. But at 2 of those 3, I think they have strong All-American candidates. Obviously, I think Hildebrandt could be a high-placing All-American. And I think Bartley could be too, actually, if again he just puts a couple things together here, and I think he's getting there. I think he's getting close to being able to be that type of wrestler. But at those other 7 weight classes, again, not predicted it, but I think each of those 7 is capable right now with their talent and with their experience of advancing to the finals on Saturday night in March.
I saw an interesting question come up online, and I guess it's going to remain an academic question, but I'm curious about your opinion. If Soriano had a return engagement at Rec Hall, what do you think the fan reception would be like?
That's a good question, and I don't know, because I think
that will not happen. Right? He's done after this.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. I don't think it would be all that icy. Okay. I think there would be some fans that would, give him grief, and there would be some boos. I think by and large, it would almost be apathetic. I don't think. I don't know. Maybe I'm misreading it.
Living well is the best revenge.
Yeah, and I don't know a lot of people that harbor just all kinds of animosity. I mean, it's a kid that he returned to his home state. I think part of it would be if he had gone to Iowa, or if he had gone to Ohio State or something, there might be a different feeling about it.
Yeah,
but I think most folks are like, listen, yes. Penn State fans would have loved to have seen him stay here. But he returned to his home state. It wasn't like Rutgers was threatening Penn State. And they had a great team. I mean, this is not a put down, but they weren't threatening Penn State in terms of winning the national title, even with Soriano there and with their first 2 champs in 2019. But I think that I think there was more at the time. I think there was more bad feelings from Soriano for whatever reason against Penn State, and I think those have faded too. I actually had a chance to talk with his dad. I was kind of the third party to a conversation that was going on, but they pulled me in, and I don't think his at least in the conversation with me, and it was another Penn State person that he was talking to, there didn't seem to be any animosity that he's harboring now. And again, I think most Penn State, I'm sure there are some fans that are bitter about it. I think most fans are like, I get it. Now, I think the fact that he's now with his 3rd team, different people are going to perceive that different ways. I do think that that makes it harder to think that you're in this for your teammates, right? And that's a big thing with Kales. I mean, he wants a team that is about the team, and by and large, he has had that throughout his coaching career here at Penn State. But at the end of the day, it's an individual sport, and if a kid feels more comfortable at different places, so be it. I don't think it would be like rousing boos and it won't happen. But if he came here, I don't think it would be. I think most people would be okay, whatever. And he's very good. I mean, obviously.
I did just get the story here. Shouts to friend of the show, Kathy Kasperik, a great Penn Stater, former president of the Greater Pittsburgh chapter of the Alumni Association out there in the Berg, sent me from Dave Wilson on Twitter, who is from ESPN. Can confirm the @Pokes report that OSU, that's Oklahoma State, offensive coordinator Casey Dunn pulled AJ Ferrari from a burning car after a serious accident. Very fortunate that neither athlete nor other driver suffered life-threatening injuries.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, that was what was related to me. I still haven't even actually seen any of the news reports on it, but yeah, that's kind of scary stuff, and glad that he is okay, and hope everything works out so that he can continue the season here. Again, it sounded like, at least in the report that I was told about, that it was an accident that was caused by his speeding and going around in a situation where he should not have been going around, or obviously speeding. So again, we'll have to see how that all plays out in terms of discipline and everything
scary
else
stuff.
But yeah, very scary stuff. Let's talk a little bit about the NFL weekend, because I will say, I mean, that is the stuff you kind of dream about, and I didn't with no dog in the fight, it was a lot of fun to just sit back and watch all of it play
Wildly
out.
Entertaining.
I will say, I was on the bus with the Penn State Wrestling team coming back from Michigan State during the Kansas City Buffalo game, and most of the Penn State, there is a connection now with the coaches, and so we were kind of pulling for the Bills, and really thought with 13 seconds left, like most, that was it. That they man, unbelievable. They came down in less than a minute, and they won it, and all of the talk. I mean. Yes, I mean, in retrospect, the squib kick, and even at the time, that seemed like it would be the right move. And there's been a lot of talk on the defense, and hey, you got to be able to. Yes, I don't disagree with you, but I don't think either of those teams were stopping the other. The way those two quarterbacks were dialed in there at the end, it did come to, I understand the argument as far as it goes that it wasn't the coin flip, it was the defense. It was the coin flip, because neither of those defenses were stopping either of those quarterbacks. Yeah. I can't prove it. If we could go back and maybe there's some crazy tipped ball interception but it sure didn't feel like that. It felt like it didn't matter who won the toss, whoever it was. Those quarterbacks just weren't going to be stopped, or those offenses with those quarterbacks.
Those poor sons of bitches, Ironhead. I am still a little messed up in the head thinking about these Buffalo fans. I mean, truly, I just want something good for that fan base. They are great fans up there, and they really do not deserve.
And you have that picture of Stephon Diggs at the end of last season. By the way, Diggs probably had the best tackle of the Buffalo defense. Like, they should have put him out there on defense when he slammed that fan that was out on the field. That was probably the best defensive play by the Bills all night long. But yeah, it felt like, and again, as somebody with no real dog in the fight, but yeah, I'm kind of pulling for Buffalo just because of Sean McDermott's connection here. And again, the connection is just that he reached out and came down and watched the practice, and has a tremendous amount of respect, and has been very open about the admiration that he has for Cale Sanderson and the way that program is run. And so, I mean, I have a little bit of a connection just because my grandfather and Jim Kelly's father were in the hospital at the same time. I actually have a signed Jim Kelly Buffalo Bills hat as a result of the hospital stay that those two had. And I always liked Jim Kelly going back to the whole recruiting process with Penn State. What a great linebacker he would have been.
Would have been in the Hall of Fame. I maintain to this day.
And obviously, I mean, it's pretty easy to pull for Kelly in his post football career and the way he has courageously battled cancer as well. So. And I have a couple of friends that are Bills fans, and they're good peeps.
Yep.
And so I would like to. And obviously, there's the Terry Pegula connection now too.
Quarterback and team. Yeah, you mentioned the squib kick thing. Where do you come down on that? It's presented as this like no-brainer strategy that should have employed.
They're making it sound like it's a guarantee that they would have won the game because there's a couple of things about it. One. Like, okay, if you get the ideal squib kick and it lands at like the 25 and scoots past and runs off like 5 seconds, yes, right? But you make it sound like that's
what
you
happens
just
every
squib
time.
the kick and that's what happens. What is as likely as not, right, is that you give them better field position. And again, if they're well coached, and I think they're pretty well coached on the Kansas City side, right, it is get to that ball as soon as you can. I'm not sure definitively that any more time runs off, maybe a second, but right, because you can just touch the ball and signal it down.
Right? Yourself
and
up.
if you're smart, that's what you do. And I think...
And you potentially surrender 10, 15 yards of field
more
position
field
versus
position.
a touchback.
Right.
Yeah,
so, I mean...
And the football is a weird-shaped object.
Yes.
Crazy things can happen when you squib kick it. I can't remember what year it was. It was one of the years Nebraska either won a title or was in contention for a title. So it's like 95, 96 range.
Yeah.
They were going to lose to some middle-of-the-pack Big 12 team. I want to say it was either like Missouri or Colorado. And it was a similar situation. All you got to do is run out what little is left of the clock. And they did the squib kick strategy. And the ball hit at like the 40-yard line and took a crazy carom and ended up like letting Nebraska start at damn near midfield. And then all they needed to do was go another 10, 15 yards, kick a field goal and win the game, which is exactly what happened. I'm not saying it's an invalid strategy, but to act like that was just like a toggle switch, and if you flipped it, you won the game.
Yeah, like it was a brain cramp that
that
McDermott had or the Buffalo coaches
I think
had. I'm with you.
A far bigger mistake, if you want to call it that, coaching mistake in those final 13 seconds was, not more aggressively defending the middle of the field, coming with a 4-man rush on the last play before the field goal. Because the most improbable thing of that entire sequence, Ironhead, is that somehow Andy Reid got to the final 13 seconds of a game with all 3 timeouts.
It was amazing.
Has never happened before, will never happen again. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. Andy Reid coach team had all 3 of those timeouts at the end of the game. He had timeouts to spare. Andy Reid just throwing them around. You know what? Hell, I'm going to take a timeout just because I can. I've got so many timeouts. Unbelievable. So if you're going to call out the coaches, and again, like to your point, I think it was just a case of the defenses were gassed. Whoever had the ball, those 2 great quarterbacks, 2 great offenses, they were going to move it. But you probably could have schemed that up a little bit better than Buffalo did those last 2 plays.
Yeah. But again, the execution was just unreal. I mean, you just don't I don't care how good of quarterback you're playing and all of that. To get whatever it was, 40-some yards in 2 plays when you need it in 2 plays like that is just unbelievable stuff. And it was heartbreaking. I mean, absolutely heartbreaking for the Bills, who are no stranger, as you said, the fan base in particular, no stranger to heartbreak here in football. And it just felt like, again, that they deserved it after last season. and it felt like they got it. It felt like that they went out and earned
40 years.
Well, yeah, but I mean, last year, especially, and so a couple of other observations. What Pat Mahomes is doing here now, his first 4 seasons, is ridiculous. We have all been presuming, and I still am presuming, that we're not going to see anything like the Super Bowl record and appearances that Tom Brady has accumulated throughout his career. But you never say never, and especially when there is a guy that may be going to his 3rd Super Bowl and could get, and again, we'll see how it plays out, but could have his 2nd Super Bowl championship in 4 years. And it is not a franchise that seems built for just, that this is going to be the end of the run, right? I mean, this is an organization right now. And again, things can change very quickly. I mean, there's been plenty of teams and organizations over the years where like, oh, man, look out. I remember when the Steelers and Cardinals played in the Super Bowl. I remember talking with folks after that. It's like, man, that Cardinals team, though, they're going to be back. They are built. And it just, again, in the NFL especially, it changes quickly. Sure. But it sure feels at the moment like there is an opportunity there for Patrick Mahomes to go on a Brady-like-esque career in terms of Super Bowl appearances, Super Bowl victories, and all of that.
1 offsides penalty in 2018 away from being 4 straight AFC potentially 4 straight Super Bowls. Yeah. And by the way,
victories.
It's well established. I think if you've seen my appearances on the show, I love Andy Reid. I'm not an Eagles fan who hates Andy Reid. I'm a big Red fan, and I clown on him and everything. Deservedly so for his absurd clock management over the years. But I mean, I absolutely going to walk into Canton, and now he's the only coach in league history to go to 4 NFC championship games, 4 straight NFC championship games, and 4 straight AFC championship games. 9 total appearances in conference championship.
Well, and I will say that one of the takeaways I have, and again, take it for what it's worth, which is at the end of the day nothing, just one man's humble little opinion. But I do think when you factor in everything, the most important thing right now in the NFL is quarterback.
Yep.
Like, you have got to have a great quarterback. And coaching is important. I'm not saying any bum can go out there. And Andy Reid is a terrific coach. I don't think there's anybody who follows football who would argue differently. But it took Patrick Mahomes for Andy Reid to get a Super Bowl title.
Yes.
And again, that is not it took Tom Brady for Bill Belichick, considered the greatest coach in the history of the game.
Right?
It took Tom Brady. Like, Bill Belichick isn't taking. Now, he may end up getting there with another quarterback, but it is, and that's not to say that you can't win without a great quarterback. But the difference maker is, right, for these coaches, it is that quarterback spot, right? I mean, that is where it's at. You can be a great coach, but if you don't have a great quarterback who's making great plays, or at least a quarterback who's making great plays, if not a great quarterback, period, it is virtually impossible, very difficult anyway, to win the Super Bowl. You can get far, and Andy Reid got far with again, very good quarterbacks too. It wasn't like but man, Patrick Mahomes is the difference maker. Tom Brady has been the difference maker. And I do think that and I think Josh Allen's going to get there. I mean, I really do. And listen, we've said, I mean, I would have bet everything I had at the time, and there's a reason why I don't bet. And if you followed the show at all, you understand that reason why. But Dan Marino, very early in his career, I would have said guaranteed that he's not only going to get to a Super Bowl, but win it. Well, that never got. So there again, it feels like Josh Allen and the Bills will get there. And I think sooner rather than later. But again, you don't know that because things can change very, very quickly.
The one good thing for Buffalo
in the NFL
is that they're fun. To your point, you got to have the quarterback, and they appear to have gotten that figured out. Fundamentals of the team are pretty solid. They're going to keep the guys who are the core of that group under contract. And now they have the luxury of taking a really good team and just building on it here and there. And a very interesting plot line to follow in the offseason is going to be, as we get closer to the draft, is there going to be conversation between Buffalo and the New York Giants organization about a trade for Saquon Barkley? Because that's clearly a place where Buffalo could benefit tremendously. The Giants are in a full-on rebuild mode, and it really doesn't make sense for them to sign Barkley to a second contract. It just doesn't. And I mean, again, to have taken him with the number 2 overall pick, you could argue whether or not they should have selected him there, but to do that and then field the offensive line they have for the last 3 or 4 years is utter foolishness. So, it's time to blow it up and restart.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would argue that. And I am one of those that feels like that was the AFC Championship game, in that I do think the Bills and Chiefs are the best 2 teams in the AFC. Man. But here's the thing. It comes down to matchups, right? Again, I think those are the 2 best teams, and I think that was obviously it was an AFC Championship game worthy matchup, but that doesn't mean I think that the Chiefs are a guaranteed to go to the Super Bowl because, several things factor in here. One is that was as emotionally, as exhilarating as it was, that is as emotionally and physically draining game as you could have at that stage of the playoffs. And I get that all of the teams that have advanced in the NFL had very similar experiences in games. So it's not like any of these teams got to put it in, cruise control and rest all of the starters. It was all just a wild, wild weekend. But there's also something, and I know he's a rookie, and I know, again, the Chiefs are going to be rightfully favored at home and all of it. But for all the talk that we're having about quarterbacks, man, Burrow just has the it factor, whatever that is. And I don't think Burrow is the most polished. I don't think he has the strongest arm, any of that stuff. But he has the to go back to my favorite Penn State football term over the years, he has the swagger, right? And he brings that swagger to that locker room, and everybody else buys in. And I am telling you that Cincinnati team right now feels like it is a team of destiny.
So
right in that locker room, like they believe they are a team of destiny right now.
And look, regular season games don't translate all that much to the playoffs, but at the very least, they can say they went into
they have confidence.
A matchup with Kansas City with a lot on the line. I mean, the Chiefs at that time thought they were playing for the 1 seed. Like it looked like if they did not beat Cincinnati, that they were going to be definitively out of it. And that turned out to be the case, right? So, it's not like Kansas City was getting to the end of the season and they got caught looking ahead. There's only one of those first-round buys. They're incredibly valuable, even though both teams who were the 1 seeds lost last weekend.
Yeah.
If you're Kansas City, you want to avoid having to play that game against the Bills that they just did, because now, if nothing else, they're gassed from that. That took absolutely everything they had to win that game. They were playing to avoid that, and Cincy still beat them with the division title on the line. So we know they can hang because they've had the experience of winning late in the season against the Chiefs in a meaningful game. And I don't know how many more times you need to see Burrow do it before you acknowledge what you said, that he has it. And to me, the potential of the connection between Burrow and Jamar Chase, porting over from a national championship in college to turning around this backwards, woebegone franchise, that's going to be a really cool thing to track going forward. And so, yeah, I agree. It's damn near impossible to bet against Pat Mahomes, especially at home in Arrowhead. But, man, there is a part of me that is just a believer.
Yeah.
And you put Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase together and crazy things happen.
Yeah, it's I think going to be, I don't know if this coming weekend, if it's possible to even match, let alone top what we saw last weekend. But I will say the intrigue around those two quarterbacks and teams makes this, I think, must-watch TV for football fans,
for sure.
Casual or otherwise. And, certainly not the only ones making this observation, but it really is unbelievable when you look at the number and caliber of young quarterbacks right now in the AFC in particular. It is crazy.
Brutal.
Again, Patrick Mahomes, I think many of us perceive him now as a veteran. He's in his fourth year.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still in the infancy of his quarterback career as a pro.
40 now.
Well, yeah. And but, when you factor him and Josh Allen, obviously Joe Burrow, you still have Lamar Jackson, and a very dangerous team. I think if they can get themselves healthy, I mean, injuries kind of derailed that organization this season. Justin Herbert. And I'm telling you, Derek Carr, that dude, what he was able to lead that Raiders team to through this type of season is probably not underappreciated by Raiders fans, but I think it's probably underappreciated by the majority of the rest of us.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Because what he did, and now he has some terrific receivers for sure as part of that equation too. But man, I think that guy's pretty special in his own right. But man, it's just it's crazy, and it's why I think the Steelers right now are going to have a tough time unless they can get whoever it ends up being. But dream at the moment maybe for a Steelers fan of an Aaron Rodgers, but getting somebody of that caliber, I think again for the next couple of years, and then hope that you find the next great young gun somewhere here in the draft in the next few years if you're the Steelers, because again those quarterbacks feel like they're going to be playing at a very high level for a very long period of time. And then, you go to the NFC and what the 49ers did and the way they did it with the special teams play. Again, I go back to feeling like you're watching a team of destiny. It kind of has that feel. Jimmy Garoppolo has that chip on the shoulder, and I think he's able to carry that over into the locker room too. Right, I think all of these teams feed off of those their quarterbacks and the personas and the personalities, and I think San Francisco has a chip on its shoulder, and then. At the end of the day, for all we're talking about all these other quarterbacks, Matt Stafford's been in the league for how many years now, Booch? And he's never lost a playoff game. Never once lost a playoff game. For as good as Brady is, I mean, he's lost playoff games. We just saw him lose this weekend. Stafford never loses a playoff game, Booch. So it's hard to bet against Stafford.
An underrated benefit of playing for the Detroit Lions. An undefeated playoff record.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, it's worth also mentioning, Goon and I talked about it a little bit last Thursday, the number of Penn Staters on rosters in the playoffs. I talked about on Wild Card Weekend, there were 14 active players, plus Sam Ficken on IR and Mike Mennett on a practice squad in Green Bay. And you saw this past
but kickers
weekend,
aren't really going to factor in.
No, they don't really play a big role in the postseason typically. But we'll start right there. The ageless wonder, man.
I tell you, it is just so cool to watch
in the
him
snowstorm, like it was
continue.
nothing,
Yeah.
right? Like, I think this is a Chicago Bear. He laughs at that. You think he's a Bay Area guy? No, sir. That guy kicked the Bears into the Super Bowl. He laughs at the pressure. No problem with the weather. He kicked at Penn State. He kicked in Chicago. And by the way, I don't think it's talking down on Robbie Gould, who is one of the most accurate place kickers in NFL history, that he did not have a sterling career in that department at Penn State.
He didn't. I'll be the first to tell you that. There
was once a time when Kirk Ferentz took an intentional safety and gave the ball to Penn State down 2, and it said, I know you've got the future third most accurate kicker in NFL history on your team, but I'm going to take my chances. Right? And so this is a true story, Ironhead. So he ended up in camp with the Patriots as an undrafted free agent. You probably know the story about how he got some coaching to change his approach.
Yeah.
And so then he did not make the cut. I mean, they had Adam Vinatieri, so he wasn't going to make the roster. He was a camp guy, but they liked him. And, that's one of the benefits of being a camp guy for Bill Belichick. He's got a big Rolodex. He can make a call for you.
Yep.
He gets him to try out with the Bears. And I'm watching ESPN, and I see across the bottom line, Chicago Bears sign PK Robbie Gould. And honest to God, Ironhead, I thought, man, that's really unusual that there were two. I seriously thought this. There were 2 kickers named Robbie Gould. Not in my wildest dreams, after watching the kid for 4 years, did I imagine that there was one of 30, at that time, 30 NFL teams was going to sign this guy to be their kicker. And, man, look at him now. Awesome. I love it.
It is. It is just truly fantastic stuff.
And were it not for Green Bay having the worst special teams in the league, like the advanced stats
unbelievable.
Had them 32nd out of 32.
It is unbelievable that you could have in a playoff game at home both a field goal and a punt blocked.
Crazy. It's insane. And had it not been for the terrible, terrible special teams in Green Bay, the Penn Stater who was the hero of that game would not have been Robbie Gould. It would have been Adrian Amos.
Yeah.
For making that pick.
Yep.
And he probably didn't even have the most significant interception by a Penn State safety this weekend. That honor goes to Nick Scott.
Yeah.
With a really athletic play on Tom Brady.
Yep.
And that's an awesome story, by the way.
Former Penn Staters and / Chicago Bears making an impact.
Yeah, that's right. Very good. Good job, Bears. Way to let him go.
Game. Yes,
Way to let him go. But, man, Nick Scott, doing what he did at Penn State, committing here to Bill O'Brien amid all of the, the term. I think a lot of people forget that recruiting class. Every single one of those guys came here thinking they were never going to get to play in a bowl game.
Yep.
And
still signed up for it.
They signed up for
it. I don't think you can possibly overstate how impressive that is in terms of the kids' commitment to this football program.
Because
right?
it all rolled back so quickly, right? First you had like the relaxation and then the Corman lawsuit, and all of a sudden it all disappears within 24 months. But that 2013 class, there was no indication there was going to be any rollback.
No, they signed truly believing that they were not going to have that opportunity.
Yep. So that was Nick Scott's class. He comes in. He's a running back, one of 3 guys. Has a kickoff return, makes some nice special teams play. He absolutely vaporized some kid on Maryland as a gunner on one of our kick coverage units. And that play actually was one of the reasons why I always felt like he had a good shot to stick on an NFL roster, because I knew he could make good hard tackles on special teams. Converts to safety, ends up as a starter. He's a 7th round pick, and now look at him. I love it.
It is. It's great stuff, and I do think there is something about the stories. I mean, listen, the Saquon Barkleys and they're great in their own right for sure, but there is something about the stories of the Robbie Goulds and the Nick Scotts, when you're talking about kids, right? You know, Michael Jordan getting cut with his his basketball team when he was a kid. There's something about and listen, I think it's a big part of why Joe Burrow is where he's at now is the experiences that he went through, and that it didn't come easily to him. And I always hate that terminology because it makes it sound like the guys that it came easily to weren't busting their ass either. They were. I mean, when you say it comes easily, you know, it's what I talked to with. I think I've talked about this before, but for David Taylor, right? It was always listen, and he did. He worked his tail off, so it was not that it came easily, but it is easier to work your tail off when you're getting results, right?
Sure.
So you work your tail off, you win a title. Work your tail off, win a title. Well, yeah, I want to go back and keep working my tail off because I keep winning titles. Then, you know, he had the setbacks with Kyle Dake, and then the injury, and things weren't going his way. He wasn't getting on the Olympic team. And I think that those experiences at both the NCAA tournament, and in particular the matchups with Dake, and then having to deal with the injury, and then moving up a weight class, and the dedication that took, there's just a different appreciation when you go through those hard times. And again, it isn't that the guys that it looks like it's coming easily aren't putting it in, but it's different when you put it in, the time and the effort, and you don't get the results, and then you have to go back and either readjust or just recommit. And, you know, I really do think that Joe Burrow, if he had gone in and been a 4-year starter and won a couple of national titles, I don't know that it necessarily translates the way it is right now to the NFL, because there was such an appreciation. And again, I think because of the experience with Ohio State, you know, it's just like Tom Brady still is carrying around the chip on his shoulder and the grudge about being a 6th round pick.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers is still carried around you know, he felt he dropped too far. There is something about having an experience or multiple experiences where things don't go your way, that if you are elite, right, and you have that special inner drive, it can take you to that next level. And I do think you're seeing that for sure with Joe Burrow. But I think it's part of why Nick Scott and Robbie Gould, and, you know, for sure why Sam Ficken is, you know, where he is still in the NFL. How many Penn State fans would have thought that after that Virginia game, that, oh, yeah, this is a guy that'll even get a sniff of the NFL, let alone be in the league for well, I think it's going to be for many years to come still, too.
And, you know,
in Ficken's case.
List doesn't stop there. Grant Haley had a handful of special team tackles for the Rams. Ryan Bates has played really, really well as Buffalo's starting center. And he, another guy who started as an undrafted free agent, was part of a trade from Philly to Buffalo, made the 53-man roster, and now look, here he is. Penn State has done, I think, you know, obviously a very good job of putting talent into the NFL under James Franklin, but one of the things that I find impressive is when you have guys who are undrafted free agents who make and stick on rosters for multiple years. And we really have a number of those guys. If you're, you know, 7th round pick, undrafted free agent, that kind of thing. Will Fries, Merit is another example. Nick Scott, those are all 7th round picks. And then you've got Jack Crawford is another guy who's still playing. He was on IR for Arizona, but he's another good example. Bates was an undrafted free agent. Robbie Gould, undrafted free agent. Grant Haley, undrafted free agent. A couple of guys, Nick Bowers, a guy who's on the Raiders. Plenty of guys who don't get picked and take the longest, toughest route to the league and stick around for a couple of years. That really speaks to you know, just developing fundamentally sound football players. Yeah,
and I think that mental fortitude, right? Too. Like there's something about the, you know, believing in yourself. And yes, I mean, you've got to be developed as a player and have the skill set and all of that. But there's also something to that's that's a great one. It is going to be interesting to see what happens in these two conference championship games now. There's just a lot of great storylines, right, in both of these games, and with the players, the coaches, the quarterbacks involved in these games. I mean, Garoppolo-Stafford is an interesting matchup just because of the way, again, Stafford, everybody has known, has had great ability, but wasn't going to be able to get where he probably should with the Detroit Lions. Now is given this opportunity with a Rams organization that is obviously all in for this year. And Garoppolo, a guy that just, again, keeps finding ways to win, and I think, again, has completely won over that locker room with just, again, his willingness to go out and compete. And it's not always pretty, and it's not I don't think anybody will confuse his skill set with Patrick Mahomes, but man, the guy can make the NFL throws, right, which was a big question for years there. And then again, the leadership component is clearly there. And then
San Fran, Kevin Givens is another undrafted free agent.
Givens
is playing really well.
That's another one that's been a difference maker here. So it's I don't know, it was a wild NFL weekend, and I think these championship games, I don't know that they could possibly be better than what we saw this past weekend, but I do think they both have a chance to be really like similar type of games in terms of right down to the wire finishes, and watching these quarterbacks in particular, and perhaps kickers again go out and make the crucial plays at the end to win the games for whatever teams we end up seeing in the Super Bowl. But I sign me up, because I can hardly wait to watch these conference championship games, and then the Super Bowl again. Whatever two teams remain. And now, truthfully, with the Bills out, like, I really do not have any passionate rooting interest for or against any of the four teams. There's not. Like if the Cowboys were there, I'd be rooting passionately against them. If the Bills were there, I'd be passionately rooting for them. The Bengals, I'm kind of rooting against as a Steelers fan, but I'm just Joe. I don't know how you couldn't root for Joe Burrow. And again, I'm as passionate a Steelers fan, and I don't, Bengals, Browns, Ravens, all teams that I normally root passionately against. But I will tell you, even as a Steelers fan, if Burrow and the Bengals are there, I'm okay with it. I mean, I'm not necessarily pulling crazily for them, but I'm not rooting passionately against them the way I normally would against the Bengals, just because, again, I like Burrow.
I mean, it's to me, it's kind of how many times are you going to kick the Bengals?
And honestly, it's a likable team. I mean, Burrow obviously at the head of it, but there's a lot of likable personalities, and even truthfully, all four coaches. And again, I'm speaking just for me. I know there's some people that McVay seems to be a little bit of a.
I'm not a huge Sean McVay. He's a genius.
I don't know that I call him a genius, but I do like him, and I like the way I like all four coaches. I'll just leave it at that, and I'm okay if any of those coaches win it. So for me, it's just one of the very unusual years where I'm just sitting back and let's just watch and have some fun watching. It's a little different because I like having a vested interest, and I usually am able to create one. But again, I'm okay with any of these four teams winning this weekend and winning the Super Bowl. There's not one of these teams that I'm again passionately for or against, and I'm just looking forward to watching the remaining three games of the season.
Well, I know you're old like me, Ironhead, so
yes,
you can appreciate
even older.
There is a part of me that would love to see a Niners-Bengals Super Bowl, just a throwback to the 80s. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that. But again, the Rams are all in
I
on
think
this year, and I'm okay with that.
A different kind of matchup probably, although the potential to just see a Niners
Oh yeah, I'm
Chiefs
with
rematch,
you.
which is not like super compelling to me, but any other combination I think would be fun.
Yeah, and again, for me, it's just it's weird to just let's just sit back and watch and see what happens and enjoy it for what it is, and not have any passionate interest one way or the other in any of the remaining games now this season. We're hoping Goon will be back Thursday. I will not be here Thursday. Be traveling out to Iowa City.
I told you to come back with a W. You did.
Yes.
Please do the same thing.
I will
again.
say, Booch, there is a chance that we'll be out there. I don't know for sure how this is working out, but if we are out there and in the hotel in time, I will try to check in. Cool. Just zoom in for at least a portion of the show on Thursday. I think we're still in the process of finalizing the travel arrangements. So once we get that settled, see if that's a possibility.
The reservations don't get lost.
Yes,
or,
all of that good stuff.
Power. Who knows? Mysterious things probably happen out there.
You never know for sure. I will say the Iowa Power Company, if you ever get to Iowa City and you're looking for a great restaurant, man, that place is phenomenal.
Is that right?
Right on the river, and that is.
They know how to make unhealthy food.
There are a few places that I'm like I have to get to, but every time we're in Iowa City, I'm like, yep, that place, whatever I got to do to get over there and have a meal, I will do. So I am looking forward to that, probably on Thursday night as well. But, should be a fun one Friday between the Nits and the Hawks, and we'll be talking about that next Tuesday. Obviously, hoping that Booch and Goon will be here at Quaker Steak and Lube on Thursday. And until then, be good and be safe.
The leap of faith. Some hesitate, but not you. You don't ask what if. You embrace what's next with open arms. You don't question your decision. You double down. Because you know the thrill is worth it. Introducing the 2022 Telluride Nightfall Edition.
There's always something happening at Quaker Steak and Lube. From live music to exciting new flavors, meet your friends and refuel at your local Quaker Steak and Lube today. Can't slow down? Then order online. Pick up and get back on the road. Find us at thelube.com.
Hi, Johnny Broom here. If you're in the market for a new Hyundai or a pre-owned car, truck, van, or SUV, nobody beats a Blaze Alexander deal. But don't take my word for it.
Hey, Goon says tell him Johnny sent you.
Hey, tell him Johnny sent ya.
Tell him Johnny sent you.
Wait, tell him Juan or tell him Johnny sent you?
Tell him Johnny sent you.
Here at Bill Pickles Tap Room, we say,
tell him Johnny sent you.
And remember,